and welcome to the Chaos Cosmology, Theory and Practice in the System of Everything is Permitted and Nothing is True. I am your host, Dr. Jymie Lynn Darling, PhD in Anthropology of Ancient Religions and a practicing occultist for over 25 years. This is sponsored by Babylon Gardens Apothecary at BabylonGardensApothecary.com, a wonderful Attar place where they allow me to be a mad genius in the lab. So this is a really good webinar. I like teaching chaos because chaos is one of my favorite ones to practice, and it's not actually a practice. So, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to start out with my usual story. And that is the story of the path of the wolf, the path of the eagle, and the path of the squirrel. The wolf joins a pack. He thinks only what the pack can think. He doesn't think outside the pack. He does what the pack tells him to do. Anything outside the pack he doesn't understand, he attacks because he fears it. You got the path of the eagle. The eagle flies high above. He sees everything. He knows everything. He talks to no one, participates in nothing. And you got that little squirrel running around the forest. He jumps from tree to tree. He knows every tree in the forest. He knows what he wants to take from each tree. He knows when to leave something alone. He may not like a tree for a second, but he knows it so that he can always go back to it if he changes his mind. The squirrel is the most dangerous path that a person can take in any system of knowledge, because the squirrel is outside the wolf pack. The wolf fears it, so it attacks. And the eagle is jealous of it because it does what he knows. He knows what the eagle knows, but he's not afraid to do it. Chaos magic. It's like an eagle. It's like a squirrel. Okay? A lot of people go from a wolf pack to being an eagle, and the chaos magicians end up as a squirrel. The old, never mind what's happening now, things will be great in the afterlife, in heaven, or another planet, etc. Doesn't play true in chaos magic. In chaos magic, we care about what's now, what's happening at this moment. We want to control everything that's going on. And so as far as the whole idea of it being chaotic, it isn't. And people think it is a bunch of people running around just chaotically practicing magic. And it isn't. Chaos magic, which is also, you've got the CHAOS and the KAOS, and with the C and the K and the magic, is a postmodern or a postmodern magical tradition which emphasizes the pragmatic use of belief systems and the creation of new and unorthodox methods. Chaos magicians, also called chaots, are often seen by other occultists as dangerous or worrisome revolutionaries. You should, in a way. It is the freedom found in the Babylon abyss called Apsu, where potential is born, where creation is formed, and where the wisdom of Enki is given. In other words, we go all the way back and all the way forward. Chaos itself is not a system or a philosophy, believe it or not, although many people call themselves chaos magicians. It's actually an attitude that one applies to one's magic and philosophy. It's the basis for all magic, as it's the primal creative force. Here's where becoming a squirrel comes in, and why chaots are considered dangerous. A chaos magician learns a variety of magical techniques, usually as many as he or she can gain access to. Okay? That means you jump from tree to tree to tree. You pull as much as you possibly can from every tree. Okay? But you go beyond the system and beyond the dogmas to the physics behind the magical force, and uses whatever methods are appealing to them. Chaos does not come with a specific grimoire or an even prescribed set of ethics. And for that reason, it's been dubbed a left-hand path by some who choose not to understand that which is beyond their own chosen path. In other words, the wolves. There is no set of specific spells that are considered to be chaos magic spells. A chaos magician will use the same spells as the other paths, or whatever we make up. Any and all methods and information are valid. The only requirement in chaos magic is that it works. Okay? Now, what does that mean? It means that we understand that every single magic philosophy out there has its time and place. It has its energy and its uses. It has its formulas and spells, its vibrations and its names, and its energies to tap into. But every system comes with dogmas. You can't do this, you must do that, you have to do this, you mustn't do that. And a chaos magician says, look, I'm not really going to prescribe to the dogma, okay? You guys go ahead, continue on, you're home. Must and can't and must and do and must not. And a chaos magician says, what is the core system? Without the dogma, without the whole ethical morality preaching, what is the system that works behind it? Because that's what we want to tap into. That's what we want to do. We understand the dogmas. We get the moralities. They're all into your ethics. We each prescribe to our own ethics. In the voodoo webinar last night, I told you I prescribed to the justice ethic of voodoo. However, if it doesn't suit me, as a chaos magician, I can always run from it. This is why we're considered left-hand path, because we don't prescribe to dogma. But it's not really a left-hand path that they're after, because you don't see very many chaos magicians not laugh it up and laugh it off and walk away. They don't care. They're after their core of what they do, and that is to bring themselves up, not necessarily to bring anybody else down. Okay? Now, with that said, mastering the role of the subconscious mind in magical operations is the crux of all of that is chaos. To get to a state called Bekudi by Ostenism and Spare is the road to that end. And that is really, okay, state of emptiness. In other words, completely clearing the mind of any dogma, any emotion, anything. I'm going straight to the belief core of the energy that works. So breathing that out and moving it in, okay? So that you can have this state of emptiness. So that a successful ritual has experienced, you all have experienced, right? A successful ritual. You have some degree of a high that this state induces, where you're just willing to have it work. Okay? The chaos magician uses belief as their tool. And so when I say they're a squirrel, I mean they're really a squirrel. We're really squirrels. We get inspiration from diverse areas like science fiction, scientific theories, traditional ceremonial magic, neo-shamanism, Eastern philosophy, world religions, poetry, individual experimentation, song lyrics, music, drum beats, rhythms, patterns, TV shows, movies. Really, if we can put it into our senses, we can use it. One of the biggest things that you have to do for the chaos is, and I know you guys have heard this term before, the state of Nosis, the Nosis state of the chaos. Okay? And that's a system. This is actually defined as an altered state of consciousness. Remember we were talking? Moving that out. That in his magic theory is necessary for working most forms of magic. Okay? Now I'm going to stop here and I'm going to explain something. This is not an idea of eclectic. Chaos magicians are just the opposite. When the whole philosophy, the system, all is permitted and nothing is true, that's completely correct to a chaos magician. Everything that you can perceive is permitted in your magic, and nothing is true. And with that said, what do I mean? I mean that when I go to do a work-in, I look at what would be the best system of belief that I can use as a tool. What's the strongest? What's got the most specific? I choose that one. Let's say it's Norse. I do that ritual entirely with the purest form of Nordic magic that there is. Nothing of the neo in it, completely Norse. Learn the language, learn the pronunciation, learn the foods, learn the herbs, learn the alchemy, learn the gods and goddesses, and learn all the rituals and spells that I need to do with it. When I'm done, I'm done with Norse. But during that time that I'm doing the Nordic ritual, there is nothing in the world stronger than Norse in my mind. All other philosophies have been vacated. They've been emptied. The only one that revolves in my mind is that Norse belief system. That's it. There is nothing stronger in the world in my faith than that Nordic belief system. And when I'm done, nothing is true. So that tomorrow, I might choose voodoo. And when I'm doing it, it is utterly and completely in its purest form. There's nothing stronger in the world than voodoo. Nothing. And I've emptied my mind of all other belief systems and tools. And that's the only one that's true. When I'm done, nothing is true. Only alchemy is true. Alchemy is the basis of all religions, and it's the only thing that holds true through all of them. And that's because the alchemical tree of life is every tree of life inside one tree. One trunk, many branches. So a Chaos Magician understands that. Alchemy is where they land. Philosophy is specific to that moment. So, now, you want to reach this focused point in your mind, this Nosis, this thought or goal, where it's only focused on one point. Nothing's there. There's nothing, just that one point, and that belief system that's going to get you there. All other thoughts are thrust out. Practitioners of Chaos Magic each develop their own ways of reaching this state. All methods hinge on the belief that a simple thought or direction experienced during the Gnostic state and then forgotten quickly afterward bypasses the psychic censor, the faculties that are averse to magical manipulation of reality, and is set to the subconscious rather than the conscious mind. Okay, what does that mean? That means that in our state of Gnosis, we are focused on one philosophy, one belief system. We are focused purely on one goal, one thought, one direction. That's it. Whole mind is completely vacated. A sigil lies in front of us. We focus our minds and our thoughts and our eyes on that one sigil. That sigil is charged now. And then we forget about it. And we put the sigil away, and we don't look at it. How is that helpful in magic when you're supposed to keep going? Well, that's the dogma of it. And that's where morality and ethics and dogma actually pull against you. And what that means to you is that when you forget about it, you don't sit and go, oh my God, it didn't work. Oh my God, crap on a cracker. I think I messed up. Oh, I don't see anything right now. What if I didn't do it right? See, because all those thoughts, which are actually adverse to the magical manipulation of reality, play against you twice as hard than your ritual did. In other words, your fears, doubts, and guilt kill you inside a working. This is why over the 25 years, people come in and go, I lit the love candle, but then I wasn't sure if it was going to work or if I said the right things, and then I thought, oh my God, I didn't do it at the right time. Okay, stop. That candle's no good to you now. You just took your work and threw it in the trash can along with your money because you didn't forget about it. The next day you got up and worried about it. The next day you sat and thought, oh my gosh, This isn't what, this isn't what if, and a whole bunch of what ifs. You can't second guess yourself in magic. It's not applicable to you to second guess yourself. You're supposed to, you ever walk into a room and flip a light switch? Are you surprised that the light comes on, or are you surprised that the light doesn't come on? Same with magic. Magic is your light switch. You should never be surprised that it works. You should never be reaching for that light switch going, oh my God, what if it doesn't work? Oh no, oh, the light doesn't come on. You have to stop that. And Chaos Magick takes away the dogma that puts in that fear of whether or not you did something that was karmically correct or consciously correct. And so rather than putting it in the conscious mind, where the conscious mind can sit and chop it up and make it into a big scary shadow in front of your face, it goes to where it can be enacted through means unknown to the conscious mind. That means that your unconscious mind, where all your energy lies, is now pushing through your magic. And there are 3 types of Nosis, and they are described as such. There is the inhibitory Nosis. Is a form of deep meditation into a trance state of mind. This type uses slow and regular breathing techniques. If you don't know that, it's actually 7 seconds in and 7 seconds out, or what's referred to as the God breath. Okay? An absent of thought processes, again, indicate what's in your mind. Progressive muscular relaxation, that is literally sitting there and focusing from your toes to the top of your head and feeling things relax. And it is actually very much a conscious act of doing it, where you start with your toes and you just feel then your feet, then your ankles, up to your calves, to your knees. In other words, don't go, my legs are relaxed. Do it part by part so that you have a progressive muscular relaxation. Self-induction and self-hypnosis techniques. Means to employ may also include fasting, sleeplessness, sensory deprivation, or hypnotic or trance-inducing drugs. I don't suggest any of those, to be honest. I know that IoT, which is the head of chaos, does. I say you actually can get there. You actually can get there with the breathing technique and going through the progressive muscle relaxation like I told you. Now, what do I suggest? Keep your thoughts out of yourself. Put some noise-canceling headphones on your ears. That's about the only deprivation I would say you should do. Okay? Excitatory Nosis describes a mindlessness reached through intense arousal. It's aimed to be reached through sexual excitation, intense emotions, flagellation, dance, drumming, chanting, sensory overload, hyperventilation, which, by the way, isn't like kill yourself hyperventilation. That's considered the speeding breath, and that's 3 seconds in and 3 seconds out. And the use of drugs. Again, I really don't prescribe to the drug thing. I really don't. I have to tell you, I get it. They tell you it in the books, and they tell you in IoT. Personally, let me tell you something, and there's 2 schools of thought in Chaos Magick, and I want to teach them both to you so you don't say, how come she didn't teach it? The drugs induce states. On the other hand, how do you know that the states that you're in are real? Because of the drugs. Figure it out. Now, indifferent Vesity was described by Phil Hine and Jan Fries as a third method. Here the intended spell is cast kind of, I got big words there for you guys. It's basically a spell that is cast off the hip where you don't care. It's an indifferent type of trance state that you're in, where you're not putting too much thought and focus into it. You're not using the sexual excitement or the intense emotions. You're not using the trance-like state, but you sit down and you focus on a sigil, and you don't do any of the breathing techniques. and you say, okay, good, it's charged, and my belief in it alone is all I need. Okay? And what that does is that brings us to another thing that the big chaos people talk about, and that is paradigm shifting. And perhaps the most striking feature of chaos magic is the concept of the magical paradigm shift. Borrowing a term from the philosopher Thomas Samuel Kuhn, Carroll, who's considered the granddaddy of all chaos magic, made the technique of arbitrarily changing one's worldview or paradigm of magic a major concept of chaos magic. And what do I mean by that? Is by paradigm shifting. When you get good, when you got all this knowledge, those who have ever attended a ritual with me at Panpipes now, I did paradigm shifting. In other words, I start out and I'm doing Norse magic. And in that moment, only Norse magic counts, and then blah, 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 blah. It's the strongest thing. And then all of a sudden I shift my worldview and I shift my paradigm. And I'm doing Egyptian, and it's within minutes of each other, because I needed the belief core of 3 systems that would work together, and I wanted that energy. And so I paradigm shift. Big word, easy to understand. It's not eclectic where you say, okay, well, I call in the great goddess Bast and Diana at the same time. No, I'm doing Diana, and that's all that's true, and and I'm doing it in the language, and the foods, and the rituals, and the sayings, and the vibrations. And now, boom, like a car, I've shifted gear. My paradigm just shifted. And now I'm going to call in Bastet. But I'm going to do it in the full form of Egyptian magic. And then, I don't know, Bazinga, I shift into 3rd, and I'm doing some Lovecraft right to Cthulhu. Okay? It's all about shifting the worldview of the magician's mind. In other words, you don't have to do one ritual or one philosophy in each ritual. You just have to be pure in each philosophy that you're doing in that ritual. That's paradigm shifting. Okay? Now, isn't that great? It's boom, boom, but not eclectic. Just say, oh God, not eclectic. Things don't get along with each other. That's why you shift paradigms. You can also shift Nosis during that time too. And it has been said that all systems of magic have the same end result. Oh, I really doubt this is true, because so many systems restrict their practitioners within such narrow parameters of dogma and morality. It's the point of letting go of the dogma and morality, on using simply the belief and understanding of the energy that true magic can occur. Magic is beautiful. Every religion is beautiful. I mean that. Every religion is beautiful. Christianity, oh, they're all beautiful. You know what kills you in them? The dogma and the morality systems that you just can't float with. So, but why should you give up the beauty of that energy? Why should you give up the beauty of the purity of that philosophy? In chaos, we say, you don't. We say, you absolutely do not have to. You can go forward in anything that you want and leave the dogma behind. Now, with that said, do not hang on to the dogma. Okay? The problem of morality and magic, and the lack of it in chaos, is not so much a problem for the magicians as for those that are around them. Okay? Don't let anybody tell you what your morality is, because morality is nothing more than a set of principles, usually, but not always, stated that groups of people expect others to live by if they wish to be accepted into that group. Okay? The book of Lord Sheng said, when you are willing to do that which others are ashamed to do, therein lies an advantage. And that's true, because if somebody was to tell you, and let's get real with this, because I've heard this over the years so many times, I cannot do money magic for myself. Why not? Because it's against the rules. What rules? The rules that say that you can't do magic for gain. I'm sorry, who gave you those rules? Well, I read it in a book. Is the author even accredited? Well, they wrote a book and it's published. Well, okay, My dog can write a book and get it published too. I can show you how easy that is. Doesn't mean he's right. So I can do things for monetary gain. Again, is it against your personal morality? Or is it against morality that has been placed on you that you don't understand why you have it? And if the answer is, I don't understand why I'm following this, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, then dump the dogma. Because it's not within your morality system. This isn't to say, go running about and doing death spells on everyone. Chaos magicians, by the time you have studied all the paths, you've gone up the tree so high and so far, and you're on that middle pillar, and you have your beliefs are just so well established that you don't even look at the jokers running about, where everybody's like, let's get some revenge, let's do this, let's do that. I'm telling you, in the 25 years of study and practice that I've had, gone after maybe 4 people. One of them was a child molester that got off in court. I mean, legitimately, I see the silliness, and I just don't want to. It's almost an enlightened state of Nosis that you're just like, I'd rather worry about what's me than worry about what's you. Unless, of course, you cross my path, and you cross it a couple more times, and then you cross it again, and you really upset me, and then I'm going to slap you down to the side and take you back down to the beginning of the tree and teach you some lessons. Okay? Because somebody needs to. But the idea is that these principles were created by a group of people, not by the philosophy itself. Believe it or not by the philosophy itself. All dogma that's written in any philosophy was put there by emperors, rulers, kings, churches, groups of towns, people who wanted to control how people act. Okay? And that's what that means to you when we say that we don't do dogma. With that said, Chaos Magick, and I've said this before, is not eclectic. It is eclectic, but eclectic is not necessarily Chaos Magick. And I told you in the beginning of the lecture, or just a few minutes ago, actually in the webinar, yes, we use different eclectic, we go to a group of eclectic beliefs, but we practice them in their purest form, and therefore eclectic is not Chaos Magick. So that handles that. Chaos posits no beliefs, at least none to be considered absolutely true. Nothing is true, but everything is. You are therefore free to take anything you like and use it as if it were true. Everything is permitted. And the amazing thing is that even if you're faking it, it still works in Chaos Magick, because the faking it is really the idea of the Nosis and the true belief system. And if you can at least clear your minds and you do the right vibrations in its purest form, and you do the paradigm shifts, it still works. Chaos is a system that still works with beliefs but no beliefs. You have a lot of chaos magicians out there that are atheists. And yet, boom, there they are doing the magic. And what happens? Bazinga, they win. So the amazing thing is that even if you can just clear your mind and put it in your mind at that second, this is absolutely true, it works. Okay? A belief system, any belief system, even one cobbled together from bits and pieces, copied or original, if it's continuously subscribed to as being absolutely true by the magician, it ceases to be Chaos Magick. And this is why. Okay? When you sit down and you say, this is absolute true, and remember, alchemy is not a belief system. Alchemy is a science and art. Okay? We only believe that science and art are correct and absolutely true at all times. But if I was to sit and say, let's say, Wicca is absolutely true. I subscribe to it. It's absolutely true. At that moment, And I continually do that, and it's not just for that one ritual or the next ritual next week. It's my daily thing. I've subscribed to its dogma. And now I'm constricted and restricted on what I can do. And so it ceases to be chaos. Chaos magicians are magical agnostics, really. They don't know what might be absolutely true, and they suspect that nothing is. And they don't care. We don't care. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care if Egyptian's not true. If it's going to serve my purpose, and I can for that moment of a ritual subscribe to its belief system, then it's absolutely true at that moment, and it will work for me. Okay? And so I don't care if you say it's not true. I don't care if you disprove the fact that Cthulhu is nothing more than a figment of the imagination of H.P. Lovecraft. If it works for me at that moment, I don't care. I don't care. It's true. It's true for me then. Okay? If I take a look at some science fiction and I go, well, I'm going to do a Discordian thing. It's true. It's true. And people can go, oh, yikes, Discordian? That's not true. I don't care. It works for me. Because in my mind, I've embraced it. It's rang something true to me. And I understand the basis of the science behind it. And therefore I can use it. And again, everything in this world, science fiction, poetry, reading, television, everything has some kind of point to it, unless it's mindless and it's just drawing, numbing, and I don't watch that. But you see this, a lot of the philosophical things in poetry where they're talking philosophy, and belief systems, and religions, and just cults, and just everything in science and physics and biology and alchemy. They're all on the same alchemical tree. They are. You're just jumping from branch to branch like a squirrel. You're still on the same tree. When you get done, you realize in Chaos Magick, you actually weren't learning tree from tree. You were learning each branch on how it sprouts from the tree, and that branch sprouting little mini branches, and therefore you thought they were trees. Chaos Magick, we believe, it's all one trunk, which is many branches. And therefore we can jump around without the fear of the eagle and without the fear of the wolf. Okay? Theory of practice is defined as chaos is the creative principle behind all magic. When a magical ritual is performed, regardless of tradition or other variables in the elements of performance, a magical energy is created and it's put into motion to cause something to happen. Stephen Mace, in his book Sorcery versus Virtual Mechanics, cites a scientific precedent for this creative principle, and I'm going to quote him right now. And this is Stephen Mace is really good at this. To keep it simple, let us confine our example to 2 electrons. Okay? The point-like carriers of negative charge. Okay? Remember that now, the science class. They're the little guys, negative charges. Now, let us say they are part of a solar wind beta particles, as it were, streaming out from the sun at 1,000 miles a second. Okay, so they're rushing out. Say that these 2 came close enough that their negative charges interact, causing them to repel one another, just like a magnet. Put the 2 negative ends, boom, they repel, right? How do they accomplish this change in momentum? According to quantum electrodynamics, they do it by exchanging a virtual photon. One electron spawns it, and the other absorbs it. In other words, if they get close to each other, one sends out a repelling thing, a little photon, a little invisible guy, and the other one takes it in and goes off into another direction. The photon is virtual because it cannot be seen. So, as one shoots it out, it shoots it to the left. Say one on the left shoots it out. When it shoots, the energy that it produces by shooting outwards pushes it to the left. The one on the right catches that invisible photon and shoots out to the right. Pretty simple. Okay? Now, it cannot be seen by an outside observer, but being wholly contained in the interaction. But it's real enough. And the emission and the absorption of virtual photons is how the electromagnetic interaction operates. The question is irrelevant to our purpose here, is where does the photon come from? See how? We get how it, okay, it does that, we acknowledge that. Where does it come from, though? That's a chaos magician's question. Where does it come from? It does not come out of one electron and lodge into another, as if it were a bullet fired from one rock into another. The electrons themselves are unchanged, except for their momenta, in other words, their direction. Rather, the photon is created out of nothing by the strain of the interaction. So it's created. It's that magic part. It's the energy between the two. That's where the photon comes from. That's magic. That's the scientific explanation for magic, occult magic. Okay? Okay? They are created of nothing by the strain of the interaction. According to current theory, when the two electrons come close enough, their waveforms interact, either canceling out or reinforcing one another. Waveforms are intimately tied to characteristics like electric charge, and we could thus expect the charges on the two electrons to change. But electron charge does not vary. It's always 1.602 times negative 19 coulombs. I'm sure you're not interested in that, but instead the virtual photons appear out of the vacuum and act to readjust the system. See how that's important to you? You do magic. You are not trying to get anything to absorb your energy. Okay? You are not trying to absorb anything's energy. You are trying to do a virtual photon between the two of you. Okay? You are trying to create something that adjusts the system accordingly, whether it's to draw it closer to you so that you can grab it yourself, or push it away from you so that you don't have to deal with it. Okay? The stress spawns them, and by their creation, the stress is resolved. How easy is that? Now, how do we do that inside the philosophies? Well, the vibrations create, but it's basic alchemy. Okay, so in theorem 2, Chaos Magick, it is the idea of MR equals K plus E times the negative double of F plus D plus G. Everything's either 0 or 1. It exists or it doesn't. It's quantum. And it's electrodynamics and quantum mathematics. And just tell us, everything is 0 or 1. It exists or it doesn't. And in Chaos Magick, that is the basis for idealism. It worked or it didn't. Okay? It exists or it doesn't. It's true or it's not. It is all a system of 0 or 1 in math. And so we take our alchemy and we build it up right to the tree. We do the vibrations pure. Okay? And we do MR, our magical result, equals K, our knowledge, plus E, our energy, times the negative double of our fear plus our doubt plus our guilt. You want to get fear, doubt, and guilt completely out of the equation. You knock those out in a format well, the format is put in quantum, so you've got K plus E with a negative and then a hard parenthesis, hard bracket double with a parentheses F plus D plus G, parentheses, hard bracket. Now, it sounds very difficult. It really isn't, because in math we work from the parentheses outwards. So we go F plus D plus G. If those are all zeros, then we zero that out. And then it's the negative double of 0, which is nothing. And it goes away because it doesn't exist. And it leaves you with K plus E, which should be 1 plus 1. And that gives you 2, giving us the perfection in alchemy of the Hermetic axiom, as it is above, so shall it be below. Meaning, on the tree of life and in the alchemical tree, you're pulling from up to down and down to up. And it's meeting right there in the middle to where you are. Humor because, good Lord, you need it in chaos when you're working with all these theories and you're shifting paradigms, you're doing all these things. Humor is rampant through chaos. You are more likely to get a sarcastic writer Cthulhu or these 9 steps on how to become a chaos magician. And it's pretty funny, and I want to break it up now because I know my head just went right in science and math and numbers, so I'm going to give you a little laugh. So, how to become a chaos magician in 9 steps. Examine your wardrobe. Any article of clothing that's colored, anything other than black, must be discarded immediately, if not sooner. Locate the trendiest coffee shop in town. Go there, but complain bitterly about everything and everyone nearby. Reminisce about how much cooler it was before, and before is up to you. Drink espresso and smoke clove cigarettes or hand-rolled drums. Then 3. Purchase, or better yet, steal from the library, if possible, everything from Uncle Al, Aleister Crowley. Do not, under any circumstances, actually read this material. You may, however, flip through it now and again to glean certain catchphrases with which to pepper your complaints about the coffee house. 4. Purge your music collection of anything except death metal and noise. Choose one or both. Vinyl by Ozzy's Black Sabbath is okay. 5. Learn the name of at least one lesser-known elder god. Paint this on your leather and sneer with a condescendence at anyone who asks what it means or tries to pronounce it. 6. Change your last name to a F-digit number of the obscure elder god mentioned above. Sorry, Satan X7 is already taken. Familiarize yourself with the local magical, pagan, or Wiccan organizations or bookstores. If none nearby, pick crystal worshippers, believers in angels and UFOs, or tree huggers. Learn their basic beliefs and then poo-poo them loudly in public. If anyone asks you exactly what you believe, practice raise one eyebrow, tweezed into a devilish point for effect. Stroke your goatee or your chin, snort, scoff, and cast aspirations upon them. And 9, and this is the most important one, pose constantly to alt-religion, Wicca, alt-Gothic, or rec.music.industrial, flaming everyone who has ever heard of said news group. Use as many scatological and sexual terms as possible, invent impossible physical recreations involving rodents and dental floss, and accuse them of it. Do not respond to anyone who flames back. Disappear for a day or 2 and then start over. It's because you see so many new newbies come in and this is, and that's what they do. So we've actually created a 9-point list of what everybody, all the little baby magicians and baby occultists start to say. Chaos, let's get back into it. Oh, the magical practice. It's actually broken down into 5 models. There's the spirit model. This is purportedly the oldest model of magic. Now, it may very well have come into existence after or simultaneously with energy model. Don't know. We can find it worldwide in shamanic cultures, as well as many religions. Its basic premise is the existence of an otherworld, inhabited by more or less autonomous entities. In other words, there's this world of spirits, angels, demons, gods, and goddesses. The shaman or magician is someone who can enter the other world, at will, who has traveled widely in it, knows its language and custom, and has made friends, smitten enemies, and or acquired allies and servitors there. This is important, as all magic is these entities making. In the spirit model, magic is seen as being affected by these entities, who are usually invisible, at least the average puncher. And it's shaman's or magician's task to make it put in his will into effect. Now, what does this mean? Let me break that down. What that means is the spirit model says that the magical practice in that case is including anything in the other world. Gods, goddesses, demons, spirits, angels, blah, 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 fairies, dragon riders, whatever. And so you do this by prayer, by barter, by cajoling, or even, by medieval demon magic, Goetia. by the application of the magical force, threats, and pressure. The other world may have its own geography, but it's usually considered to coexist with the world of everyday life. The key is entering it in an altered state of consciousness, controlled by trance or ecstasy, of which the shaman is an expert at. The spirit model has prevailed in the traditionalist or dogmatic magic until today. Some of its noted exponents were Franz Bourdon and, at least to a great extent, Aleister Crowley. That is understanding the very basic of traditional magic working inside a model building of a ritual. Okay, and so now we have to take into consideration not the dogma, but the belief system behind the spirits of the world of the philosophy that we're doing. Then we go and we start building the energy model. The rise of the energy model in the West is marked primarily by the appearance of mesmerism towards the end of the 18th century. Anton Mesmer, who was not an occultist, but who was, on the other hand, regarded by his contemporaries to be a miracle worker of sorts, rediscovered, amongst other things, that the ancient healing disciplines of hypnosis and magnetism. And it worked very well for him, and he popularized his theory of animal magnetism, which he saw as a subtle force inherent in organisms, but he also made heavy use of metal magnets for healing purposes. While the French Revolution kind of put a kibosh on him and his movement, his ideas are not actually lost inside Chaos Magick on building the model. They were actually taken up by a number of others, primarily occultists, who drew on them while developing their own theories of magic. There are interesting parallels to the concept in this vitalist theories of biology, which emerged around the same time. Other exponents of the energy model of magic, not then so termed, by the way, were Reichenbach with his conception of Ud, Eliphas Levi and his astral light, and Madame Blavatsky, who adopted the theories of prana from yoga physiology. This was also about the time when anthropology and ethnology discovered the Polynesian concept of mana, meaning life, and the Asiatic scholars began to concern themselves with the Chinese principle of Kim or Qi. So shamanic magic is frequently a mixture between spirit and energy model. The shaman may call upon his spirits or gods to give him power, and he may, vice versa, use his power to extort favors from them. Now, with that said, let's break that down right now and what that means. It means that now you've got your spirit model, and you know what you're going to get. Now you're going to work your energy model on how to rise it. Okay? Now, in that sense, you want to rise the vital force of the body, of the mind. Okay? The world is being viewed vitalized by subtle forces or energy. Okay? And at that point, it is the art of perceiving and manipulating them. And so the magician is more like an energy dancer or the go-between. He's leading the orchestra with the little stick. Yeah? Okay? But even here, the key to perception, charging, and general utilization, if we look at chaos terms, that's Nosis. So the energy model that you should be working with, instead of jumping around and being the go-between and the energy dancer, is to put the mind into a Nosis. Okay? Using one of those three that we learned about this evening. Okay? So, with that said, now let's move on. Theories and practices pertaining to the energy model can be found with many magical authors, but it has seen its real large-scale popularity only really since the 70s, when the influx of Eastern thinking, the hippie movement, for better words, made concepts such as chakra and kundalini work a mainstay of most occult disciplines. Strong energy models elements can be found in Plan's Martin system of electromagnetic fluids, condensators, etc. We have more access to Eastern philosophy than we used to in the movements, for instance, say Franz Barthol's time. And with that said, we want to, do your spirit model, write that out, and get that down pat in whatever paradigm you're going to go for. Then think of it as an energy chakra, kundalini rising, as the energy model. In other words, all that fancy thing I just read to you, I'm telling you, it's kundalini work. 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out, and get into your Nosis. Doing one of the Nosis things, or hyperventilate it with 3 seconds in and 3 seconds out, working yourself up to a sexual fervor. So, I mean, you know what I mean? And that is what the energy model is about. And you have to figure that out on how it's going to work and if it's going to work with inside that paradigm. In other words, there's no point in putting a huge sexual energy Nosis if your spirit paradigm is to calm yourself down or to create peace around you. At that point, you want to do the 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out, and do the breath of God model of building for the energy model. So your energy model will actually change according to what your spirit model is growing. We have to remain flexible enough to do that. And if we have to shift a paradigm in the middle of it, and then we have to shift a model in the middle of it, then we must be completely ready to cleanse the mind, pure it out, and shift gears just as fast as if you were doing an 18-wheeler rig down the freeway. Okay? The psychological model is the next one, and this is where Sigmund Freud's theory of the subconscious revolutionized Western thinking in general, and psychology, which he did not, as some people want to believe, invent all by himself. Now, suddenly, man is being seen as a being which is partially conscious and in control of itself. Whoa! So we're not just moved around like little puppets on the stage. While psychology is still fighting for its academical recognition as a science, it has stamped its mark on therapeutic disciplines, and particularly on magic. You can't discount. And some people are going to subscribe to Freud. I subscribe to Jung. Okay? The psychological model of magic does not purport to explain how magic works. Its only premise is that the subconscious, or as Carl Jung later retagged it, the unconscious, will do the job if it is properly addressed and or conditioned. This again is achieved by the magical trance, the suggestion and the use of symbols, which is your sigils, as tools of association and as a means of communication between the magician's conscious will and his subconscious faculty responsible for putting it into effect. In other words, you see it, you want it to pass right through your consciousness, right to the back of your unconsciousness, forget about it, and let that part of your brain create that invisible photon that then makes the change in the system that you want. Okay? I'm trying to make this as easy as possible on this. So, a more radical approach was taken by AOS, Oscar Osman Spare, whose sigil magic rests on the basic tenets of the psychological model. Spare is actually a brilliant artist and a brilliant chaos magician, and his system is in principle an inversion of Freud's theory of complexes. By actively suppressing his will in the form of a graphical sigil and forgetting about it, the magician creates an artificial complex, which then starts to work on similar lines, just as suppressed subconscious traumas will cause neurotic behavior. In other words, and here's the thing, you have a traumatic experience and you start to forget some of it, but it creates a behavior in you and around you. And that's your subconscious working. And so in the theory of the psychological model, through AOS's idea of chaos, was the, and this is all string theory that is connected, how everything is connected, is that you write it on a piece of paper and you see it. You do your spirit model, you do your energy model, you do your Nosis, you do your shifting of paradigms, and then you walk away and you forget about it. And what that does is it's when you've done all that work in all those different types of trance states, it imprints in the subconscious, just as a trauma would have imprinted in the subconscious. That's awesome, because that's always working, and we don't always have to focus on that. That's always there, and it's always creating, and it's creating in such a mass amount of energy that the neuroticism of the traumas come through. But what if we could harness that and create it to be something greater? And that's exactly what Chaos Magick has set out to do with these models. Now, some of the people that utilize this, okay, is Israel Regardi, Dion Fortune, William Butler, Francis King, William Gray, and Peter Carroll, okay? And that's been since the 70s of this, well, of last century, actually. The information model is our last one that we do, okay? The information model of magic is being developed since about 1987. There's still considerable debate about the direction it's going to ultimately take. But here's the basic premises to date as it follows. Energy as such is dumb. It needs information on what to do. This can be so-called laws of nature or direct commands. Okay? And here's the thing, the information model is really just how you're going to see this. It's not really something that you're going to build. But B, information does not have mass or energy. Thus, it's faster than light and not bound by the restrictions of the Einstein space-time continuum. It can therefore be transmitted or tapped at all times and at all places. In analogy, but of course only as such, it may be likened to quantum phenomena rather than the relativistic mass energy. It can, however, attach itself to a medium. Example, an organism or another memory storage device. Okay. Whoa, right? Whoa! What are the Chaos Magicians doing? Ultimately, what we're telling you there is that when you build the spirit model, the energy model, the psychological model, and you figure out your shifting of your paradigm, and you got your damn Nosis ready to run, you have to give it a direction. It's got to have all the information into it. And that is basically the idea that you don't burden it down with dogma or too much information. And you don't try to give it too much poetry, and you don't try. In other words, energy's done, and it needs things. You need to kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid. All right? Don't sit there and go, okay, so what I want is the money. This comes from, I need it to come from. Money, bank, now. Rent. Simple things. You don't want to burden the energy down with so much information, and then it becomes slow moving. Okay? At the start of the theoretical debate, it was still believed that the postulation of morphic, or morphogenic, fields had to be an essential factor by way of explaining the mode of actual information transmittance. Look, it doesn't. This whole idea that we have to be physicists and scientists to understand how to truly get magic to work in its purest form of its philosophy isn't as hard as it seems. Okay? Physics hasn't changed that much in the understanding that energy never dies, it simply changes format. Philosophies have only restricted us and caused us to not create fast enough because of dogma and philosophy. Okay? So, with that said, the term cyber magic, from cybernetics or the science of control systems, is placed into moving. And if any of you are computer people out there, you'll get this. Cyber magic does not rely on a magical trance to achieve its effects. It's actually its own memory banks, namely the brain and the spine, okay, or those of the target person. The desired information is then called up and transmitted quite similarly to a copy command on, where you go Control-C, Control-V, kind of like that on the computer. You're doing that with your magic. It's because once you have the spirit models, every time that you need to call that up, you do not have to go back through the ritual of paradigm shifting, model building, and so on and so forth, because it's stored inside the memory and it's become a cyber magic inside the brain. And because it is now imprinted on your subconscious, you can Control-C, Control-V, have the subconscious imprinted again and do it again. How do you do that? How do you do that? Let's see. How would you do that? Well, the Kundalini effects show that it's an amount of yoga have a great help in achieving it to imprint it the first time. How do you imprint it the second time? Oh, hey, I forgot. Do you remember that sigil we put away that we focused on so high? We go call that back up, and that's our imprint. And then we can Control-C and V it back onto the subconscious. And again, it works. So, and then we've got the metal model. Now, the metal model of magic is not a model as such, but an instruction on how to use the others. For its only advice to the magician is, always use the model most adequate to your aims, or a combination thereof. This may sound a bit trite, but while we see that it is not quite as self-evident amongst magicians as one might expect, it's and it's heard in the Chaos Magick's assertion, nothing is true, everything is permitted. And most people think, oh, I've got to hold on to things that don't serve me in the philosophy. No, stop it. Stop. You're killing me. Well, and this ultimate, before this aspect is enlarged upon. So let us look at an example of the models presented here as it applies in practice. We'll take the situation of magical healing to demonstrate how models differ from each other so that you can get a really good idea of what I'm talking about in models. In the spirit model, healing is regarded as an exorcism. Illness is caused by evil, or at least undesired entities, which have neutralized and removed, which have to be neutralized and removed by the magician or the shaman. In the case of a patient with a heart condition, the shaman may, for example, see a green lizard in the vicinity of the heart, which must be removed. To achieve this, the shaman will usually call upon the help of his own spirits, who will handle the matter. Properly exercised, the patient has been freed from the cause of his ailment and can recuperate. In the energy model, ailments are seen to be caused by an energetic imbalance. Thus, our heart patient may have too much or too little fire energy in his heart chakra, and the magician's task consists of restoring that balance. Okay? Commonly defined as health. This he may do by laying on his hands using crystals, precious stones, by magnetism, chakra massage, Kundalini rising, chakra opening, but the balance has now been restored and the patient is regarded as having been healed. In the psychological model, illness is considered to be basically psychosomatic in nature. The magician will therefore either do a ritual work with the patient which enhances his stamina and resolves his troubles. In other words, a Saturn ritual to cope with Saturnian challenges the patient is seen to have avoided by becoming ill. Or he will charge a sigil for the patient's health. Now, what that says to you, you're giving them a psychological thing to hold on to. And he will instruct the patient to construct and charge his own sigil. In the information model, the cyber magician will transmit an informational healing matrix into the patient's system, or create a morphic field of health and self-healing, and let the patient's energy take it from there and do the job on its own accord. In other words, automatically. This rests on the assumption that the energies are still powerful enough to have the work done. Otherwise, he will either jump back into the energy model to provide the patient with additional energies required, or install another information in matrix to create an influx of the power desired. What does that mean? Well, we throw a few psychological things at them. We throw a few energy matrices at them. We call upon the spirits to help, or we do one, or we do all, or we do part of what we think will work, depending on our paradigm. And in the cyber magic thing, the morphic field is really transmitting the belief or the copy-paste belief system into the patient, saying, look, here's what I need you to do, and this is what I want you to do, and this will work because I'm going to transmit morphic field. Now, we don't say it like that. What we say is belief, self-belief. Okay? No fear, no doubt, no guilt. Okay? Transfer this Here's your stones. Here's your gree bag. Here's your sigil. Here's your candles. Here's your ritual. Call upon your spirits, or I'll call upon them, and all of that imprints onto, and that's the morphic transfer, by the way. That imprints onto the patient, the heart patient's mind, that it's okay and everything will be fine, and his body gets the energy to do it. Now, you have to decide beforehand which paradigm you will begin with. It's not necessarily to exclude the possible of shifting the paradigms in mid-work or the blending of them, of course. Usually the decision is taken upon the lines of expediency, efficiency, and personal preference. Thus, I personally find healing work with patients easier within the spirit or energy mode. While I do seem to get better results with the self-healing employing either the psychological or the information mode, model, I should say. Then again, cyber magical work tends to take up to 2 days to show a noticeable effect, so that may be more expedient to go for laying on the hands when the pain is very acute. So, or you can do progress of all and keep them healthy for a long time. Another point is time factor. While traditionalist rituals in the spirit model may take a half a day to 2 weeks or even months, operations in the energy model seldomly take longer than a few hours at the most. If we take spare sigil magic as an example for a very fast technique within the psychological model, the operation can be over and done with in 5 to 10 minutes. Information magical operations, on the other hand, only take up to about 3/4 of a second, a time span which can be cut even shorter by an experienced cyber magician that can simply push energy over to someone. So, self-evident is the meta model, as the meta model system may be seen, which is doing many models. In practice, many people seem to feel somewhat uncomfortable with its inherent relativism. This is very much the case with the beginners in magic. And a typical dialogue that I've seen run along this: are there spirits? In the spirit model, yes. And in the energy model? In the energy model, there are subtle forms of energy. What about the psychological model? Well, in the psychological model, we're dealing with the projections of the subconscious. What happens if in the information model then? In the information model, there are information clusters. Yes, but are there spirits now or not? In the spirit model, yes. And so, do you see where that conversation goes? It's a logical leap. Usually experience is pretty frustrating exercise, but while the asker claims that the magician is trying to avoid the issue, he's at the same time overlooking the fact that he himself is basically only restating the old yen for absolute objective truth, not really a quantum magical approach, to say the least. However, the aspiring cyberpunk magician of today cannot expect to be spared the pains of coming to terms with the notion that freedom and dogma are mutually exclusive. Okay? Therefore, everything is permitted and nothing is true. Or is it? Is everything true in its given paradigm? I leave you with a description of a vortex rite to bring forth the chaos energy to begin any ceremony of another. Stand up. That's number 1. Number 2, take a few good deep breaths and relax. 3, stomp your foot on the floor and cry, "Hut," meaning start. Extend both index fingers and bring them together in front of you. And say, "Sequel Udembach." Sequel Udembach, which roughly means manifest chaos. Visualize a point of light at your fingertips. Separate the fingers so that you can draw a vertical line before you and say, "Sequel Uzarfe de Twin." This means roughly manifest ether. Okay, Planck's constant. Ether is buzzing with potential. Planck's constant is a total contradiction. So visualize the astrological symbol for Saturn at the top of the vertical line and the Greek letter for C at the bottom. Bring the index fingers back together and put a visualizing the lines and the symbols at the other end. Draw a line from the fingertips perpendicular to the first line and say, "Sequel Hudux Ach." Roughly, manifest light and darkness. At either end of the line, visualize, respectively, a sphere of light and one of total blackness. Okay? Repeat step 6. Okay? 9. Draw another line at a 45-degree angle to the first two. Say, Sigil, Ashara, Dua. Sigil. Roughly, manifest fire and air. They also mean energy and time, respectively. A variety of symbols can be used to represent the two, including personally created sigils. I tend to use the old alchemical triangles myself. That's just, the alchemist and the traditionalist in me talking. Repeat, step 6. Last line, perpendicular to the one in step 9. Use the phrase, Sigil, dogma, nobo. Roughly, what on earth, or space and mass. Just like step 9, really, and use whatever symbols do it for you, whatever floats your boat on that one. 12, take your time and make sure that you can fully visualize all the lines and symbols. Don't try to control color. Just let it come as you will. This is one way to discover your octane or your base alchemy. Okay? 13, say, Sigil, un Vortex, which means manifest the vortex. And make a gesture with your left hand would suggest setting a wheel spinning to you. This can range from a twitch of a finger to the sweep of an arm to, I don't care, gyrate your hips if you want. Okay? Use your breath to speed up the initial spin with each inhalation and exhalation. Make the world go faster and faster. Keep doing this until it appears three-dimensional in your mind, as if you could thrust your arm into it. Your vortex is now open. Shout out, Sigil, Choya, Fakwe, manifest the work of chaos. Or, if so inclined, some other phrase. It can be any language you choose. It really doesn't matter. And this is true to all the steps outlined. Using a weird tongue like the Uranian barbaric helps distract the conscious mind, and thus the psychic censor that wants to put in that fear, doubt, and guilt. So, I don't care. Speak Babylon. But don't speak something that your mind can then, in that language, turn around and say, fear, doubt, and guilt, fear, doubt, and guilt, fear, doubt, and guilt. Okay? Go about whatever business you've set out to do. In other words, whatever paradigm or shifting of paradigms with all your models. And when you're all finished with your vortex, get the visualization strong again. Point the index finger of your left hand at it and query, and Vix, how? Then your middle finger and ask, Polhut, why? And finally your thumb with the question, what cock, what? These are the 3 basic questions of materialism and science, spirituality and religion, and magic, respectively, per Carroll. See the triangle formed by the 3 outstretched fingers? Visualize it as sort of a volume control, solid triangle. Turn the knob counterclockwise to shut the vortex off and shout out, analogies, which is basically bye-bye, turn off. And it's goodbye to the eschaton. Okay? Before I let you go, people ask us a lot. Entitled, why are we such assholes in Chaos Magic? And I do consider myself a Chaos Magician in the pure sense of the philosophy of being a squirrel. And most people will and do call me an asshole. And I quote Peter Carroll to explain why we are such assholes. The first stage of seeing through the game can be a shocking enlightenment that leads either to a weary cynicism of Buddhism. The second stage of actually applying that insight to oneself can destroy the illusion of the soul, and it creates a magician. Most chaots, particularly young ones, are convinced they see through the game, but they don't necessarily know the rules they're claiming to be breaking. Still, they're convinced of their own superiority. When you're convinced of your own superiority, yet still young and insecure, it's easy to show defensiveness by mockery and derision. Such mocking can bolster your internal sense of status, putting yourself above others. So, that's why. Because true chaos magicians, we're sarcastic assholes. But we've seen through the game. We've gotten through the illusion of the self. And we've created a magician. The rest of them are just kind of being babies and don't know what the heck they're talking about. My analogy for magical systems is that people can tell many stories about the same aspect of the human condition, regardless of where the story is set. The details of the plot and character make each version of the tale unique, but if the theme is the same, if the message conveyed is the same, then why get hung up on the details? To some people, the details are important. They'll kill for the details and often panic when the details are not done. The first flush of understanding the details for what they are, they're just window dressing, often engenders an arrogance that comes out in the form of ridicule. What? You actually believe that stuff? It's a rude attitude. And thus, we are rightly known as assholes. It's the essence of not the belief, but the dogma and moralities. Take, for instance, the threefold law. Somebody yells at me threefold. Oh, what? You believe in it? Don't threaten me with sex. But then I don't believe in the dogma of karma. And I know where the threefold law came from, and it was a sex magic act. So, at that point, everybody goes, you're an asshole. And to some extent, I guess I am, because I don't have the time to sit and explain it to everyone. But, you know, and the first words out of my mouth are you believe that? And my eyes roll. And, and then mock. But there's another meaning for the word mock, by the way, as in making a mock-up, a model that is not the real thing. That definition also applies, because often in using the eclectic techniques, people who call themselves chaots have no idea what they're really doing. It is like the facades of a town built for a movie. There's sometimes nothing behind it. Arrogance without substance is also a trait that will earn the name asshole. So if you're going to be one, at least have substance behind it. I'm often asked, what are the authors that I suggest that are good to continue? AOS, with Austin Osman Spare, Robert Anton Wilson, Peter Carroll, Phil Hine, Stephen Mace, David Lee. Penpipes Magical Marketplace carries a wonderful assortment of these chaos books, and I haven't really seen them much other places. You can go to penpipes.com, or they're in Hollywood. You can look them up. Now, this webinar is brought to you by Babylon Gardens. It's hosted by myself, Jymie, Darling, Dr. Darling to you, to my friends, or Jay or Jims. At the end of the webinar, this will be posted to BabylonGardensApothecary.com in the About section, where you will find special offers for each webinar in alchemy and spagyrics that they allow me to create. Thank you for tuning in, and support at BGA makes these webinars possible with me.